Hi Tacoma, welcome back to your third grade TV classroom. Today is Monday, November 2nd, and I'm Mrs. Oslin. As always, let's take a moment and check in with our zone. Your zone is the color that's associated with the feeling or emotion that you're having. So take a moment and check in with your brain and your body. And then think about your I message. Your I message sounds like I feel because Also think about your feelings thermometer. How strongly are you feeling your emotion? Take some think time. And I'm going to practice sharing my I message with Rafa. Rafa, I'm feeling a little bit frazzled this morning. Just have a lot going on and I'm kind of having a hard time focusing. So I think what I'm going to do is practice some hand breathing to help me refocus my brain, to get my brain and my body back on track. Now it's your turn to share your iMessage with your learning buddy, someone who's in the room with you, or with me on the screen. Now, I am going to practice my hand breathing to help my brain and my body refocus. Even if you are in the green zone, you can practice with me so that when there's a time when you're not in the green zone, you have a strategy that you know really well that you can use. So let's practice hand breathing. That really helped my brain and my body refocus. Let's review our 3 personal standards. You'll remember the 3 personal standards are the decisions that we make and the behaviors that we use when we come together to learn. We want to make sure that everyone feels safe thinking and speaking so that we can all learn. So I want you to practice putting a finger up and saying the 3 personal standards with me. Show respect, make good decisions, solve problems. Today, we're going to think about and talk about and read about how we can solve problems. Specifically, how we can solve a problem or a conflict that we have with someone else. Now, you'll remember that we've talked about naming our emotions and getting really specific about what we're feeling so that people know exactly what we're thinking and feeling. And we used our feelings tree to help us. And our feelings tree starts with happy and mad and sad on some branches. And then we added some emotions that are associated or can be kind of like happy and mad and sad. And we added them to our feelings tree. So we added thankful, and we decided thankful was kind of like happy, and disappointed is kind of like sad, and angry and frustrated are kind of like mad. And then there's embarrassed that's kind of off on its own. So we're going to keep the feelings tree in mind while we read a book today, and we're also going to think about and remember our stop and stay cool steps. You'll remember the stop and stay cool steps really help you when you're feeling really strongly on the feelings thermometer. We're also going to keep in mind, gosh, we have a lot to keep in mind today. We're going to keep in mind our win-win conflict solvers. And these are the solutions that we can use so that both people in the conflict get some of what they want and both people walk away feeling good. Today, I want to teach you how the peace path can help you solve a conflict with someone. And you'll remember a conflict is a problem that you have with someone else. And we're going to take all of these social emotional tools that we've been learning, our iMessage, using our feelings thermometer, using the feelings tree, and win-win conflict solvers. And we're going to put them together and use what's called the peace path. Now, the word peace means a solution without violence, and a path is like a road or a walkway. So our peace path is going to help us get to a non-violent solution to a conflict that we have with someone else. We're going to read this book today, Matthew and Tilly. It's by Rebecca C. Jones, and it was illustrated by Beth Peck. And this is a story about two friends, Matthew and Tilly. And you'll see that they're going to have a conflict, and they don't use stop and stay cool or iMessages or any of the things that we've been practicing. And you'll see that they're in their conflict, it gets bigger, and they both say things that they can't take back. So let's get started reading about Matthew and Tilly. Matthew and Tilly were friends. They rode bikes together, and they played hide and seek together. They sold lemonade together. When business was slow, they played sidewalk games together. And sometimes they ate ice cream cones together. Once they even rescued a lady's kitten from a tree together. The lady gave them money for the bubblegum machines. So later, they chewed gum together and remembered how brave they had been. Sometimes, though, Matthew and Tilly got sick of each other. One day, when they were coloring, Matthew broke Tilly's purple crayon. He didn't mean to, but he did. Think of what is the word that we call something when we do something and we didn't mean to do it. Tell your learning buddy, what is that word? Some of you said an accident. You're right. When we do something that we didn't mean to do, it's called an accident. You broke my crayon, Tilly said in her crabbiest voice. It was an old crayon, Matthew said in his grouchiest voice. It was ready to break. No, it wasn't, Tilly said. It was a brand new crayon and you broke it. You always break everything. Stop being so picky, Matthew said. You're always so picky and stinky and mean. Well, you're stupid, Tilly said. You're so stupid and stinky and mean. Now, how do you think that Tilly is feeling that Matthew broke her crayon? Take some think time. Turn and tell your learning buddy, I think Tilly is feeling, Now, even though it was an accident, Matthew didn't mean to break her crayon, it still has an impact on how other people feel. It still probably made her angry. And then think about, what kind of statements did she use? Did she use an iMessage? No, she used what's called a you message. So instead of talking about how she was feeling, she started telling Matthew what he did. You, where is it? You broke it. You always break everything. Now, that's not part of solving a conflict. That's creating a conflict. How do you think Matthew is feeling? They both seem to have said some things that they can't take back. They called each other some pretty mean names. I would feel kind of hurt if I were Matthew and Tilly, so I added hurt to our feelings tree. It's kind of up there with sad. Now, what kind of voice did Tilly use? You broke my crayon, Tilly said in her crabbiest voice. And then what kind of voice did Matthew use? It was an old crayon, Matthew said in his grouchiest voice. You're feeling crabby and grouchy. So I added crabby and grouchy to our feelings tree on the mad branch because being crabby or grouchy is kind of like feeling mad. Now, if you were Matthew and Tilly, this would be a good time to think about your feeling on the feelings thermometer and recognize that you're probably feeling a 4 or a 5, which means you need to use the stop and stay cool steps. You'll remember the stop and stay cool steps are, you say, I feel like I'm losing control. Then you stop. You give yourself a chili hug. That's what it is. Give yourself a chili hug. Practice doing that. See, we need to practice this more. Even I'm out of practice. Give yourself a chili hug. And then you practice breathing in for 5 and out for 5. Let's practice that. Then hopefully you're cool and ready for school, and you're better able to think about your emotions and use an iMessage so that your friend knows what you're feeling. Now, because Tilly and Matthew did not use their stop and stay cool steps, they were at a 4 or a 5, and they started calling each other names. That made the problem worse. Matthew stomped up the stairs by himself. Now, how did Matthew go up the stairs? He stomped. Tilly found a piece of chalk and began drawing numbers and squares on the sidewalk by herself. Upstairs, Matthew got out his cash register and some cans so he could play store. He piled the cans extra high and he put prices on everything. This was the best store he had ever made, probably because that picky and stinky and mean old Tilly wasn't around to mess it up. But he didn't have a customer, and playing store wasn't much fun without a customer. Tilly finished drawing the numbers and squares. She drew them really big with lots of squiggly lines. This was the best sidewalk game she had ever drawn, probably because that stupid and stinky and mean old Matthew wasn't around to mess it up. But she didn't have anyone to play with, and a sidewalk game wasn't much fun without another player. Matthew looked out the window and wondered what Tilly was doing. Tilly looked up at Matthew's window and wondered what he was doing. She smiled, just a little. That was enough for Matthew. "I'm sorry," he called. "So am I," said Tilly. And Matthew ran downstairs so they could play together again. Now, let's look at our win-win conflict solvers and think about which win-win conflict solver did Matthew and Tilly use to solve their conflict. Did they share? No. Did they take turns? No. They apologized. Now you'll remember, even if there's something that you do that's an accident, it's still important to apologize so the other person knows how you're feeling and knows that you recognize that you did something that impacted how they are feeling. And you'll remember there's 2 parts to an apology. You need to be sincere. I apologize for, And then the other person can either say, "Thank you for apologizing," or "I accept your apology." You'll remember some of the other win-win conflict solvers are compromise, where both people give a little, make amends, that's kind of like apologizing, laugh it off, get help, find something else to do, ignore it once, talk it out, take a break, or another idea that you might have. Now, this is the peace path, and there's 3 steps on the peace path. The first step is tell the problem, and we've been practicing using iMessages. So you're going to say, "I feel because And then the other person is going to say it back to you. They will say, "You feel because So Tilly might have said, "I feel angry because you broke my crayon." And then Matthew would say it back. He would say, "You feel angry because I broke your crayon." And then the other person in the conflict gets an opportunity to share their iMessage. So Matthew might say, "I feel hurt because you called me names." And then Tilly would say it back, "You feel hurt because I called you names." The first step on the peace path is tell the problem using an iMessage. Sometimes, though, Matthew and Tilly got sick of each other. One day when they were coloring, Matthew broke Tilly's purple crayon. He didn't mean to, but he did. This is the point at which Tilly and Matthew would start on the peace path. The first step is using an iMessage to tell the problem. But they didn't do that. "You broke my crayon," Tilly said in her crabbiest voice. "It was an old crayon," Matthew said in his grouchiest voice. "It was ready to break." And then this is when they start calling each other names. Tilly says, "You always break everything." And Matthew says, "Stop being so picky. You're always so picky and stinky and mean." And then Tilly says, "Well, you're stupid." So after they use their iMessage, the second step is to brainstorm solutions. So both people are going to think about some win-win conflict solvers that they could use that would help them solve this problem. You'll remember the win-win conflict solvers. Now in this case, when Matthew accidentally broke Tilly's crayon, which one of our conflict solvers do you think would be an appropriate solution? Take some think time. You might have said Matthew could apologize. They could make amends. He could figure out a way to make it right. They could just laugh it off. They could get help from an adult. Maybe they could find something else to do and put the crayons away. Tilly could ignore it once. Or they could talk it out or take a break. The third step on the peace path is solve the problem. It's where you talk about what win-win solution you're thinking of, and the other person talks about what win-win solution they are thinking of. And then together, you decide which one are you going to try. Today, we talked about using the peace path to help us solve a conflict. A conflict is a problem that you have with someone else. Just like Matthew and Tilly, it's totally normal to have conflict with our friends or family. But you'll remember it's really important to stop and think. Use your iMessage, tell the problem, brainstorm win-win conflict solutions. You'll remember a win-win solution is one where both people get some of what they want and both people feel okay with it. And then you have a discussion with the person and decide which win-win conflict solution are you going to try. Now today I'm going to challenge you to use the peace path to help you solve a conflict that you might have with someone else. I also am going to remind you of your reading strategy that we learned last week for when meaning breaks down, or when you're reading and you suddenly realize you don't understand what you're reading, or if there's just a word. You can use this anchor chart in your ELA packet to help you. You also have your how to stay focused strategies that can help you when you're independently reading today. You're still building your reading stamina, reading for longer and longer periods of time. If you get to a couple pages in or a couple minutes in and you realize that you're not focused, pick one of these strategies to help you. You're also going to continue adding to your reading log and turning this into your teacher every week so that your teacher knows what you're reading and for how long you're reading. Now, it's time for your break. While you're on your break, you're going to take care of your needs, but also gather your materials for math. What you will need are your whiteboard and marker, your learning buddy, and your counters. So make a good decision and have those materials ready for Mrs. Wally in 5 minutes. Thank you so much for reading and thinking and speaking with me today. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Welcome back, third graders. I hope you had a great break. It's Monday, which means we're going to do Make It Monday. In just a moment, you're going to see a number, and I want you to think a few ways that you can think of to make that number. Today, I want you to try to be creative in the ways that you're making the number. Are you ready? 300. How can we make the number 300? If you've got one way, I want you to think of another way. See how many ways you can think of to make the number 300. All right, go ahead, tell me, what's one of the ways? 200 plus 100. What's another way? 100, times 3. 3 groups of 100, or 100 groups of 3. 3 groups of 100 would make 300. That was good thinking. It's another way to make 300. Oh, you can split it in half. 150 plus 150. Okay. 175 plus 125. Okay. What's another way? There are a lot of ways to make 300, aren't there? Let's go to the next one. What about 350? How could you make 350? Oh, 175 plus 175? How do you know that that makes 350? What was that, Rafa? 75 plus 75 is 150. Plus 100 plus 100 is 350. Okay. Can you even think of another way to make 350? Yeah, we could break it up into place value. 300 plus 50. It's another way. Ooh, 175 times 2, right? 2 groups of 175? Yeah. Okay. Today, we're going to spend some time looking at multiplication by 7. We're going to think about what are the ways I can decompose the factors. Now, if you don't remember from last week, let's talk about what decompose means. Does anyone remember? Compose means to put it together. I want you to think about a compost pile or a landfill. When we put organic matter like banana peels and apples and rotten vegetables into a compost bin, what happens? Yeah, it breaks down, right? The stuff that it's all made of pulls apart and breaks down into the soil. When we're going to decompose a number, we're going to pull it apart so that we can use that number. We're going to break it down into smaller pieces so that we can use it. Just like we take the food, we break it down into smaller pieces so that we can use it to feed our soil to grow new plants, right? So think of decompose, think of a compost bin, right? The number, the factor is going to decompose. We're going to pull it apart into smaller chunks. Before we start, we're going to think about all the ways we can decompose 7. Okay? So Mr. Kevin's going to bring up my whiteboard, and I'm just going to make some number bonds. Not with that pen. I'm going to make some number bonds with 7. You ready? We're 3rd graders. I'm going to make sure you can see it. Thank you, 3rd graders, for being patient. I appreciate it. Oh, I know what's wrong. There. Oh, come on, Mr. Ladybug. There we go. 7. I'm not going to make the circles because you're big 3rd graders, and I don't think we need them. So what are some ways to make 7? What are you thinking? Right, we do 5 and 1, or 1 and 5, okay? Yeah, 4 and 3. 5 and 2. No, not 5 and 1. 5 and 2. Oh, dear friends. It's not going to be another one of those days. We're going to have a good day. What about 1? What could I do with 1? 6 and 1. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can I do it any other way other than 7 and 0? Decomposing 7 into 7 and 0, is that going to help us break the factor apart? No, because we're still going to have 7, right? So we're going to erase this one. So as we look today at our problem, you need to think about which factors work best for you. They might be different. What works for my brain might be different than what works for your brain. And that's the great thing about math, is that there's lots of ways to get to the same answer. And even with breaking apart the factor of 7, there are lots of ways to get to the same answer. You have to decide, which facts do I know best? Do I know 5 and 2 best? Or do I know my 4s and my 3s best? Or have I memorized my 6s and 1s are super easy? That's what you have to decide, okay? So let's go ahead and let's get started. 4 times 6, this is a practice one. Find 4 times 6 by breaking apart one of the factors. Go ahead and solve. 4 times 6 by breaking apart one of the factors. I'm going to give you 1 minute. I'm going to leave the 7s up here because I want to use them today. But in this problem, are we using the 7s? No. All right, if we have 4 times 6 equals, I'm going to break my 4 into 2s. So I have 2 times 6 plus 2 times 6, which is going to equal 12 plus 12, which is going to equal 24. So 4 times 6 equals 24. Man, I'm wondering if, no, we can't see my whole thing. I wonder what happened. I wonder if this got pushed up a little bit. Mr. Kevin, do you have any idea of why it's not showing the whole? Because I see it on our big screen, but I don't see it on the screen on the TV. And that's okay. What I can do is I can make a line. I think he figured it out, friends. Oh, it's TV magic. Are you watching? This is awesome. It's like getting bigger right before our eyes. This is cool. I'm just going to leave it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself a line right here, and then I know not to write above this line. There. Oh, there we go. Now we can see it. Okay. Okay, friends. There we go. The question is, though, will you be able to see the other problems? But that's okay. So I'm going to read it. You're going to listen. You ready? It says Katie and Scott are both finding 6 times 7. So both Katie and Scott are finding 6 times 7. Okay. They each break apart the problem in a different way. So we're going to show 2 different ways to break apart 6 times 7. So we've already done some of the work. We have different ways to break up 7. Now, they might also Did it flip off? Let's see. No, it's on.
It's on. It's just, I think it.
All of it?
Yeah.
Is it gone now still?
It's back.
It's back. I'm going to leave it right here. Okay, friends. You know, we just roll with it here at the TV classroom. It's just the way we do it, right? I would like you to make an array on your whiteboard. That is 6 groups of 7. I'm going to give you 1 minute to do that. Go ahead and make your array. It's going to look like these orange dots right here. I'm not going to make an array on my whiteboard because I've got the orange dots. So I don't need to make that array because I've got it here to draw on, but I want you to have one to draw on. I'm going to give you a little bit more time. I know it's hard to draw 6 groups of 7. That's a lot of dots. Okay. How do you think Katie could split it up? Do we want Katie to be the one that breaks the factor of 6 or the factor of 7? We'll do Katie. She can break the factor of 6. What's a way you can break the factor of 6 into really easy problem? Yeah, I agree. 1 and 5. So for Katie, I'm going to do Katie's in purple. Katie's would look like this, right? She's got a group of 1 and a group of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Her problem, how would we write her problem? What would you write? It's not going to be 6 times 7 anymore. What's it going to be? It makes parentheses plus 5 times 7 in those parentheses. And that's going to equal the number we're trying to find. Okay? What is 1 times 7? 7. What is 5 times 7? Yeah, if you have to skip count that by 5, that's fine. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. That's why we do it by 5s. 5s are easy to skip count by. What is 7 plus 35? 42. So Katie thinks 6 times 7 equals 42. Okay. Now, Scott. We're going to do Scott with green. How should we split up Scott's factor? We've already done 6. Now we're going to split up Scott, and we're going to split up the 7. So which one would you like to do? Which one's the easiest for you to do? I know for me what the easiest is. What's the easiest for you? Go ahead. I'm going to give you 1 minute. I want you to do that math. And then I will do it and you can check your work. Remember, we broke up 7 up here if you're not sure how you want to break it up. Okay. I'm going to break up 7 to 5 and 2. So now my equation is going to be 6 groups of, and 6 groups of, that's what it should look like, 6 groups of 5 plus 6 groups of 2, and that's going to equal the number we're looking for, the product. Okay, are you ready? What's 6 times 5? Well, if 7 times 5 is 5, what's a group of 5 less? 30. And what is 6 times 2? 12. What is 6 plus 12? 42. Oh, look at that. They both got 42. How would I split up Scott's here on my array if I split up 6 times 5 and 2? My first group is going to be 5, and my second group is going to be 2. Do you see my 2 groups? Okay. So, we now know 6 times 7 equals 42. I want you to hold that in your head. It says, just as with other factors you have worked with, you can break apart the factors 7, 8, and 9 in more than one way. We practiced that last week. As I told you, we're going to do it again this week. We're going to get really good at it. So, use 2 different ways to break apart 7 times 7 to find its product. What did I just tell you to hold in your head? 6 times 7. We know it because we just figured it out. So if I have the problem 7 times 7, can I break this 7 into 6 and 1? Yeah. Take a look at what they did. They broke this 7 right here into 6 and 1. Because we just figured out 6 times 7. So now we have 6 times 7. So we've done this factor. this part of the factor. And now we're going to do 1 times 7. Do you see it? What is 6 times 7, third graders? It's 42. What is 1 times 7? It's 7. What is 42 plus 7? 49. So let's see if we can answer these questions. What is 6 times 7? 42. How many more is 7 times 7? How many more? What was the difference between 42 and 49? What did we add? It's 7 more. So what is 7 times 7? 49. Okay. Then it says you can use problems you solved in previous lessons, fill in the blanks to show how the array is broken apart here. So take a look at the array. Did they split apart the groups or the number in each group? Yeah, the number in each group. So we're no longer going to split this factor. Now we're going to split up this factor. Notice they have the equation notation here. 7 times blank plus 7 times blank. What did they do? Well, let's count how many dots. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they did 7 broken up into 5 and 2. 7 times 5 plus 7 times 2. What is 7 times 5? 7 times 5 plus 7 times 2. 7 times 5 is, we figured it out earlier, 35. What is 7 times 2? 14. What is 35 plus 14? 49. So 35 plus 14, it is, whoops, not 39. It is 49. Look at that. Do they match? Yeah, they do. We're going to look back at it in a second, but this is what you're going to think. And you're going to share this with your learning buddy. Which of the two models do you think is easier? Or would you solve it a different way? So looking at these two models right here, which one was easier? Thinking about the problem you knew and then adding the extra 7s, or breaking apart into factors you know, finding those factors, and then adding them together. So this one's like using what you already knew and then adding on, like, if I know that 6 times 7 is 42, then I just add 7 more for 7 times 7 because it's one more group, and I add that 7 on and it's 49. Or splitting it apart, I know 7 is a 5 and a 2, 7 times 5 is 35, 7 times 2 is 14. I add those two products together to get my final product. Which one made more sense to you? Neither of them are wrong. Or is there a different way that makes more sense to you? 1 minute of think time. Okay. Go ahead and share with your learning buddy. Which way made more sense to you? Awesome job. All right. Your assignment for today, you're going to do more of this work, but you're going to look at the word product. You're going to give me lots of examples of a product. What is a product? Right, it's the total when you have multiple groups of a certain amount. It's the total of a multiplication problem. It's what we find when we multiply, right? It's the answer to multiplication. So you need to show different examples of that. Then you're going to go through these problems and solve them, similar to what we just did today. All right? Okay. So today, did we draw models? Yep. Did we explain how we decomposed a factor? Yep. Did we find the products? Yep. Then today, we learned to decompose factors to help us solve multiplication problems involving multiplying by 7. Excellent job, third graders. Now it's time for our affirmation. Rafa, what do you think? We should start this week with a really good affirmation. What should our affirmation be? Well, I'm just trying to think of which one I want to do. I have lots floating around in my head. But I think I've got it, Rafa. You are unique. You are. And it's a good thing. There are things about you that are special to just you. And that's a wonderful thing because all of us are unique. And that's what makes our communities amazing. That's what makes being in a classroom and you can get back to your classroom and everyone has different ideas and we can learn from each other. So your affirmation today is, I am unique and that is wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to go first. I am unique and that is wonderful. Your turn. Great job, third graders. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Hey kids, we want to see your work. Just send your pictures and your stories to TV Classroom, 601 South 8th Street, Tacoma, Washington, 98405.